presence at today's conference. Minister, you have the floor. Thank you.
Ολοκληρώσαμε σήμερα την τελευταία επί ελληνικής προεδρίας συνόδου του Συμβουλίου
Υπουργών
Γεωργίας και Αλίας.
Agriculture and Fisheries Council under Hellenic Presidency, we discussed issues that fall within the competence of the Fisheries Commissioner and issues that fall within the competence of the Commissioner for Health and Consumer Protection. Now, on fisheries matters, the Presidency provided information to the ministers on the proposal for regulation on implementation of the landing obligation by way of implementation of the new Common Fisheries Policy. On this proposal, we adopted a draft Council position at co-repair level, so in the Committee of Permanent Representatives. Following that discussion, we had an opportunity to brief ministers about progress on the discard plans that are being prepared at regional level. And in the course of that discussion, the Member States exchanged opinions, experience and information. Moreover, the Commission informed the Council of the latest developments with regard to the establishment of a tax for cabling. These new developments will speed up the process of submission of a proposal by the Commission. The Presidency informed the Council of progress that has been made in the examination of proposals made by the Commission for a package of measures entitled Smarter Rules for Safer Food, and more particularly the Presidency provided information about progress made on proposals to do with animal health, plant health and official controls. Now, you should note that the proposal for the management of expenditure has already been adopted, and I'm particularly pleased with the progress of discussions on these three proposals. The first technical examination of the text has been completed. The Presidency has made quite a number of suggestions for rewording of these texts, and those proposals are now being considered in the various working parties. I believe that the work that we have done will be a good basis for continuation of this work under the Italian Presidency. Now, on the fifth proposal, which was to do with rules for the production and trade in plant reproductive material, the Presidency informed the Council of the current state of play. In the light of developments at the plenary of the European Parliament, the Presidency continued discussions in the Working Party in order to gather in opinions from the Member States on the possible structure or architecture of a revised Commission proposal. Furthermore, the Council took note of a request from Sweden and Denmark to discuss the question of antibiotics resistance, and the Council also noted the views expressed by the Member States. Then the Commission informed the Council of measures taken to combat microbial resistance, with a view to containing and minimizing the rising threat of antimicrobial resistance for animal and public health. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for your presidency. In the last 6 months, I think you have paved the way for a number of initiatives now to be taken up by the Italian presidency. The three files for which I am responsible in my portfolio and which were discussed today by the Council were the plant health file, plant animal health file, the plant reproductive material and AMR. On the animal plant health, as you know, the Commission had launched a proposal based on 5 pillars: animal health, plant reproductive material, the budget, and also official controls. And the proposal is moving satisfactorily. There are some problems difficulties which have to iron out amongst the co-legislators, particularly as regards controls, who is going to pay for these controls if we need efficient controls. At the same time, we need the financial resources so that these controls will be effective. Secondly, there's the usual problem of the empowerment to the Commission. Are there too many empowerments for the Commission? And even though we have reduced these empowerments from 600 to about 150, there is still a problem with this question. And of course, on plant health, there are the different views as to whether we should have an open regime or a closed regime, and the Commission is in favour of an open regime with adjustments to protect plant health in the European Union. On the plant reproductive materials, you know, the proposal by the Commission had been rejected by Parliament. The Council is considering several modifications. I thank the Greek Presidency for its paper on this subject, so that with these modifications, which the Commission is considering, we could try and reach an agreement in the future. On antimicrobial resistance, I need not mention the facts, the statistics. 25,000 people in the European Union die unnecessarily every year because of infections from microbes which have become resistant to medicine and to antibiotics. And I explained to the ministers what the Commission has done, particularly the roadmap, the concrete actions in the roadmap, and we shall publish during the current year a progress report on where the Member States are on the road map on AMR. We shall also publish during the current year legislation regarding medicated feed. There we have progressed a lot, and I am hopeful also that before I leave office on the 31st of October, we shall also launch the veterinary medicines legislation, which will also increase the controls regarding AMR. I am confident also that by the end of this year we shall publish guidelines on the prudent use of antimicrobials for veterinary medicine. So launch legislation, which of course will take some time to be approved, and in the meantime launch the guidelines for Member States on the prudent use of antimicrobials. Earlier on, we discussed some files regarding fisheries. As you know, the discard plans will, and the landing obligations will come into force on the 1st January as regards fisheries of next year, so we need to change certain legislation as a consequence of this new feature of the common fisheries policy. And an exchange of views took place on the progress in the development of discard plans at a regional level, and Member States discussed their discard plans, which will be agreed at sea basin level and sent to the Commission in the form of joint recommendations. And the rule is that following scrutiny of these joint recommendations, which would have been agreed on a regional level from a scientific point of view, we would then publish them as a delegated act. So this is subsidiarity at its very best, transforming itself into legislation. One final point: Denmark raised an issue regarding the capelin fish, and I am pleased to note that late last night Greenland put forward its proposal so that fishing for the capelin fish could start in June for our EU fishermen as well. Thank you.
Sara Johansson, ATL. A question for Commissioner Borg. I was wondering if you could clarify on the legislation on plant reproductive material. There will only be modifications, not a whole new proposal. And if you could be more concrete on what changes you see are needed to get an agreement with the Council and Parliament. Thank you.
I'll just say what was discussed in the Council, that several issues were raised. In particular, some Member States are objecting to forestries and forestry's reproductive material being included in the proposal, the question of delegated acts being transformed into implementation acts, and also that the administrative burden of enterprises, particularly in the non-professional field, should be reduced and not increased in any way. So these are not cosmetic modifications, they are radical modifications. We shall await these modifications in detail and examine them, and then decide what to do. Certainly most Member States are clamouring for an overhaul of this regulation, but unlike Parliament, they have not rejected it, but want this legislation to proceed. I can't say whether this will be successful or not. It would depend on whether the modifications would be acceptable by Parliament, and we shall be in contact with the new Parliament to see whether these modifications are acceptable or not. This is the only part of the 5-piece legislation which has failed till now. The others, there has been, particularly on the budget, great progress forward. So I am confident that with goodwill from each side and with these modifications, we can achieve also progress on this 5th file. But on animal health, plant health, and official controls, and particularly on the budget, a lot of progress has been achieved.
Questions, please.
Sorry, just to continue on from my colleague's question. Is there a particular timeline on that reform of the seed legislation? And are you concerned that the European Parliament will block this reform? And also, I understand that you provided an update on the action plan for the antimicrobial resistance. Perhaps could you be more specific on that? And one final question. Before the end of your tenure, do your services intend to come up with guidelines on ritual slaughterings? This has made the headlines in the UK, and I just want to know your intention on that. Thank you.
On the ritual slaughter, I do know that there is the possibility for a member state to ask for a derogation. So in this respect, it is possible for a member state to ask for a derogation. So the derogation is not automatic in favour of ritual slaughter. Whether then this would lead to guidelines in the future, one has to see, depending on how many member states use this derogation. On the action plan on AMR, I announced that we are collecting the evidence, the information, and that we shall certainly, during the current year, publish a report, a progress report, on how the AMR action plan has been implemented in the member states, whether this is satisfactory or not. Of course, it will not just be collection of information, but we shall put the information on the public domain to see who is doing well in this regard and who is not, because I repeat, these 25,000 deaths are really unnecessary, owing to AMR. As to the prospects of the plant reproductive material, I have no particular time frame in mind, except that we'll take all the time needed so that the proposal would be acceptable to both co-legislators. I mean, considering that this particular proposal out of the 5 proposals has been rejected by the EU Parliament, one has to move with caution, of course, in this respect.
Questions? If there are no further questions, θα θέλετε κύριε Υπουργέ το λόγο. Σε αυτό το σημείο θα ήθελα να ευχαριστήσω τον Επίτροπο τον Τόνιο Μποργκ για τη συμβολή του στο έργο της Προεδρίας μας.
His contribution to the work of the Presidency. I'm the new Minister for Rural Development and Food in my country, and I am sure that we will continue to work closely and fruitfully together. Thank you very much.
À ce moment-là, j'aimerais remercier tous qui ont contribué au bon déroulement de cette conférence de presse et surtout les interprètes et tous les autres qui ont veillé pour la réussite de cette conférence de presse. Merci beaucoup et merci pour votre participation.
And thank you for coming along.
Ολοκληρώσαμε σήμερα την τελευταία επί ελληνικής προεδρίας συνόδου του Συμβουλίου Υπουργών Γεωργίας και Παιδών. Στο πλαίσιο αυτό, τα κράτη-μέλη αντάραξαν απόψεις, εμπειρίες και για την Επιτροπή. Η Προεδρία παρουσίασε στο Συμβούλιο την πρόοδο που έχει σημειώσει, ότι η πρόταση για τη διαχείριση των δαπανών έχει ήδη εγκριθεί. Είμαι ιδιαίτερα ικανοποιημένη των εργασιών της Ιταλικής πλέον Προεδρίας για την 5η πρόταση που αφορά κανόνες, γιατί ενημέρωσε το Συμβούλιο αναφορικά με τα μέτρα που έχουν αναλυφθεί ενάντια στην μικροβιακή αντοχή, προκειμένου να περιοριστεί και να ελαχιστοποιηθεί η αυξανόμενη απειλή.
Reproductive material and AMR. On the animal plant health, as you know, the Commission had launched legislation regarding medicated feed. There we have progressed a lot, and I am hopeful also